بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. My brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I welcome you all in today's session. This is the sixth session where we study the section of Imam Ibnul Qayyim's book, Four Gateways of Sinful Acts. When we sin, how do we fall into sins? Right? And before I proceed, I would like to remind you that sinning here, don't look at it from a narrow point of view. You know, sinning can be committing something that is punishable by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it also include committing something or doing something that is not the right thing to say, the right thing to do. So it's broader than the sinful acts that are classified as sins from a Sharia point of view. Lying is a sin, right? Stealing is a sin, zina is a sin, right? But can you conduct yourself in a way that is not necessarily a sin, but it is not the most appropriate of ways? Is that possible? Does that make sense? You know, so you can do something that is not sinful from a Sharia point of view, but from an etiquette point of view may not be the right thing to do. From a logical point of view, it may not be the best course of action. Right? So there's no halal and haram attached to it, but logically, doing this particular action or saying this particular word may be sinful, you know, not Islamically sinful, but the wrong thing to do. Does that make sense? Let me say it one more time. Here, we're learning the causes that will make somebody fall into what? Sins. That's why the title of the chapter, Four Gateways into Sins, right? But I would like you to broaden your understanding and use these concepts to mean also how to avoid doing things that are illogical, doing things that are inappropriate, not beneficial, taking a course of action that is not in your best interest. Do you see the difference between the two? Something that not necessarily halal or haram, right? But saying something that may not be the best result for you. It will not bring about the best result that will bring you the best outcome in whatever you are seeking. So that will be not sinful as in haram or halal, but it's the wrong thing to say or do, right? Which will not bring you the results you want to have for yourself. Does that make sense? Otherwise, if you try to understand this in the limited context in which we are studying this book, or the context in which the Ibnul Qayyim is answering this, you know that this is the answer of Ibnul Qayyim with regards to somebody who has sins relating to lust, you know, sexual lust, right? But we would like to broaden the understanding so that we understand that if you have the skills to avoid falling into this very powerful desire, then hopefully you can control all other desires. If you are able to control this strong desire, you can control emotions. Right? Emotions is what gets you to act in ways that are not logical, not beneficial, not in accordance to your intellect. Every time you do something or you say something, you say it based on what? If you are in a good state of mind, you will do it based on your intellect, all right? And your intellect will lead you to say and do the right thing that is beneficial to you. But if you are emotional, then your emotions will suppress your intellectual mind, and you'll end up saying and doing the wrong thing that doesn't benefit you, the wrong thing that brings you more harm than good. Does that make sense? So we need to learn whatever we are learning here from this perspective. Those who are following the book with us, we are reading page 376 of the Arabic book, and the English book, the English version, we are in page 355. So we're speaking about the fiqh of sins, developing good, deep understanding of sins, their nature, how do they occur, what are their categories, which of them is more harmful than others, and what are the factors or the causes that lead to them. And we spoke about the gaze, al-lahadat, how your eyes, when you look at something you shouldn't be looking at, can lead you to doing something inappropriate. We covered that already. And we also covered al-khatarat. Remember what al-khatarat is? Remember what al-khatarat is? Yes, al-khatarat means thought, controlling your thoughts. Because everything begins from your thought. Everything begins from a thought, an emotion, an attachment, an addiction, whatever it may be. Everything, your passion, your compassion, your zeal, your determination, your willpower, all of that comes from a thought. If you are able to control the thought, inshallah, you are able to control everything else. If you let loose of your thoughts, then you will be out of control. You can't control your life. Right? We spoke about quite extensively, and I strongly recommend you to visit the material we covered in that section. So these are khatarat, and now we are studying al-lafadat, speaking the spoken words, the utterance, what comes out of your mouth, how understanding that control of that will help you control your other actions. And we studied that in the previous session. So this is basically session 2 of reading and treating the remainder of the section of that book. طيب, Ibnul Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala bringing now evidences from the Sunnah, from the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to show us the danger or the critical nature of the tongue, how it can really destroy your dunya and destroy your akhirah. Right? We mentioned few hadith previously in the previous session, and we covered those and we studied them. Today, inshallah, we move on to the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال, that the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, and listen to this, إن العبد لا يتكلم بالكلمة من رضوان الله لا يلقي لها بالا يرفعه الله بها درجات وإن العبد لا يتكلم بالكلمة من سخط الله لا يلقي لها بالا يهوي بها في نار جهنم. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, a servant of Allah would speak a word, will utter a word that he will take very lightly. He thinks nothing of it. But it's from the pleasure of Allah, something that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Saying that he doesn't think much of it because he thinks this is nothing to offer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He does it sincerely from the bottom of his heart, and he thinks that this is nothing compared to what he owes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لا يلقي لها بالا. He thinks very little about it. يرفعه الله بها درجات. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will elevate his rank with it many stations in Jannah. Okay? As a result of what? One word. One word. Could be a single word or could be a statement. Right? But this is one word. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would be so pleased with it. And you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not be pleased with the word unless it is actually good and righteous. Unless it has khair coming out of it. Right? So whatever Allah loves, why does he love it? Because it has khair to it. It brings khair about it. And then on the other hand, he says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, وَإِنَّ الْعَبْدَ, al-abd, the servant of Allah, would speak a word, لَيْتَكَلَّمُ بِالْكَلِمَةِ مِنْ سَخَطِ اللَّهِ, something that is sinful, something that he or she should not be saying. لَا يُلْقِي لَهَا بَالًا, he will not think much of it. يَهْوِي بِهَا فِي نَارِ جَهَنَّمْ, in one narration, 70 خَرِيفًا. In another narration, ما بين المشرق أبعد مما بين المشرق والمغرب. He will fall for it, or as a result of it, in the depth of Naru Jahannam, further than what's between the east and the west. meaning so deep. In one narration, 70 years this person will fall in the fire of hell as a result of what? One single word. One single word. Right? And again, is this meaningless word? Is this accidental word that he never meant? No. This person meant that word. And that word was very damaging. It caused a lot of damage. And as a result of it, this person's akhirah will suffer. 70 years falling into the fire of hell as a result of one single word. And the ulama, they said, anything, listen to this, anything that is capable of destroying your akhirah is obviously going to destroy your dunya. Because your dunya is like a drop of the ocean in terms of your akhirah. If you've done something that is so destructive that can destroy your akhirah, then that thing must also be destroying your dunya. It will affect you, your life, the life of the people around you. It will cause a lot of damage. Right? And we have seen many examples of this. All of us, if we think on our personal life, we could see times when one single word was the decisive factor, the decisive word that caused people to have a huge rift between them. It broke families, it broke relationships, it broke friendships, it broke deals, business deals. Why? One single word. We've seen this over and over again. So this is one evidence the Prophet ﷺ brought to show you the evil effect of speaking one word. قال ابن القيم رحمه الله تعالى وعند الترمذي. So the hadith previous to this was from Sahih Bukhari and Muslim. Very authentic hadith. This hadith, also an authentic hadith, عند الترمذي, narrated or recorded by Imam al-Tirmidhi from the hadith of Bilal ibn al-Harith. Bilal ibn al-Harith al-Muzani, one of the Sahaba, رضوان الله عليهم. عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, the Prophet ﷺ said, إن أحدكم, one of you, لا يتكلم بالكلمة من رضوان الله, will speak a word that is of the pleasure of Allah, that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ما يظن أن تبلغ ما بلغت. He or she will never think that it will reach these places or these ranks with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will never think that he will be raised in ranks because of this one word. He just says it. It's something pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Listen to this. فَيَكْتُبُ اللَّهُ لَهُ بِهَا رِضْوَانَهُ إِلَّا يَوْمِ يَلْقَى. Allah will be pleased with this person from the moment he uttered that word until the day of judgment. Meaning after that one word, nothing this person will ever do or say that will make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala displeased with them. So not only did Allah become pleased with them, but he also promised that from this moment onwards, since he said that word, Allah promised that he will never be displeased with you. As a result of what? One single word. Right? You said it in sincerity. You said it in righteousness, seeking to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala became pleased with you to that extent, to that limit. He says, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, on the other side of the hadith, وَإِنَّ أَحَدَكُمْ لَيَتَكَلَّمُ بِالْكَلِمَةِ مِنْ سَخَطِ اللَّهِ. And one of you will say a word that will be very displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. مَا يَظُنُّ أَن تَبْلُغَ مَا بَلَغَتْ. He or she never thinks that this word will be so big in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فيكتب الله له بها سخطه إلى يوم يلقى. And Allah would be so displeased with this person that he will be displeased with him from that moment until the day he meets him. What is this? Just one word. All these are spoken words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, these kind of ahadith, you really need to get your head around them. You know, you really need to allow them to sink in your mind properly. This is not one sheikh speaking or one imam speaking. This is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet of Allah, telling us one word can sort your akhirah for you. One good word. And one evil word can ruin your akhirah. Ruin your akhirah and ruin your dunya. Okay? That's why Alqamah, one of the narrators of this hadith. Alqama is one of the tabi'een, who narrated this hadith from the Sahabi. Who remembers the name of the Sahabi? Bilal. Bilal ibn al-Harith. So Bilal ibn al-Harith was Sahabi, a companion. And Alqama was Alqama ibn Waqqas al-Laythi. He was a tabi'i, one of the following generations, who did not meet the Prophet ﷺ, but met the companions of Rasulullah ﷺ. What do we call them? Tabi'i. So Alqama was a tabi'i who narrated this hadith from Bilal ibn al-Harith. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, وَكَانَ عَلْقَمَةُ يقول كم من كلام قد منعنيه حديث بلال بن الحارث. Alqama used to say, how many words, how many speech I really wanted to say, but the hadith of Bilal ibn al-Harith prevented me from speaking. This hadith prevented a lot of pious people from saying a lot of things they wanted to say. But why they stopped saying it? Because they know they are accounting themselves based on this hadith. Now, let's look into our own lives and see, subhanAllah, how our tongues are so unleashed and it seems to have no control. We will say the words thinking nothing of it. Exactly what the Prophet described. Right? We will be saying a word and thinking nothing of it. And the Prophet did say, a person will say a word and he or she will be thinking nothing of it. And it could be a bad word, right, that could destroy our dunya and akhirah. But we said it. We say it. And we never think about it, let alone imprisoning our tongue and locking our mouth. La, we will say it and never have any self-accounting about it. Now, one should be frightened, asking themselves, have I already said a word that may have already displeased Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to that extent? Yeah. Have I said a word that have already displeased Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to this extent? Also, he says, وفي جامع الترمذي, another hadith in Imam al-Tirmidhi rahimahullah ta'ala, من حديث أنس رضي الله عنه قال, companion Anas ibn Malik رضي الله عنه said, توفي رجل من الصحابة, one man from among the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam died in a battlefield as a martyr. فقال رجل أبشر بالجنة, one man said, receive the glad tidings of Jannah, enjoy Jannah for you, saying to the dying person or to the dead person that Jannah is yours, because he died as a martyr supposedly. فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, the Prophet said, وما يدريك لعله تكلم فيما لا يعنيه أو بخل بما لا ينقصه. What do you know? Why? How do you testify for this person that he's going to Jannah? Maybe he spoke something that was not of any concern to him. Even a shaheed, right? If he spoke of something that doesn't concern him, that will impact his martyrdom. Right? So Rasulullah, he says, you cannot testify to this person as being in Jannah. You can say, I hope, inshallah, I pray for him to be a martyr that is accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept him. But you cannot say for a specific person, he is in Jannah. All right? The Prophet says, maybe this person spoke when he should have kept his mouth shut. Maybe he spoke of something that doesn't concern him. He says, وَفِي لَفْظٍ, and in one narration of this hadith, أن غلاما استشهد يوم أحد, a young man died in a battlefield of Uhud. فوجد على بطنه صخرة مربوطة من الجوع. Out of hunger, they found that he tied a stone to his stomach. Tying a stone to his stomach. What's the benefit of this? When you tie a stone to your stomach, keep you from hunger. You know, it decreases the size of the stomach, and as such, you don't feel hunger. So when they have scarcity of food, they will resort to tying a stone to their stomach. So they found this person died as a martyr, and they found in his tummy a stone that is tied to him. His mother found him dead like this. فمسحت أمه التراب عن وجهه وقالت هنيئا لك يا بني الجنة. She wiped the dust from his face and she said to him, congratulations, the attainment of Jannah, my son. Congratulations, the attainment of Jannah, my son. The Prophet ﷺ here in this, he said, فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وما يدريك لعله كان يتكلم فيما لا يعنيه ويمنع ما لا يضره. How do you know, oh lady, how do you know that your son is going to Jannah? To say congratulations, the attainment of Jannah. Maybe your son spoke something that was not of his business, something that didn't concern him. Or maybe he did not give that which doesn't harm him. Meaning something that you have, which is extra, which you could have shared with people to benefit people, and the sharing of which will not harm you. But you refuse to do that. Right? Like, for example, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ in Surah Al-Ma'un. What does وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ mean? الَّذِينَ هُمْ يُرَاءُونَ وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ. يَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ, they refuse to share even utensils and cutleries. You know, when you share pots and utensils and, you know, like forks, does that harm you in any way? If a person borrows that from you? It doesn't. But what does it take from a person who refuses to share something that will not diminish anything of him? It shows that this person has no desire to help others at all. وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ. So the Prophet ﷺ, he says, what do you know? Maybe your son refused to share that which will not harm him. Maybe your son refused to share that which will not harm him. So hence, you cannot testify to him and congratulate him with the attainment of Jannah. Another hadith from Bukhari and Muslim, Imam al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala quotes here. He says, وفي الصحيحين من حديث أبو هريرة رضي الله عنه يرفعه. يعني he says, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, what did he say? He says, من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا أو ليصمت. Whoever believes in Allah and the last day, let him say good, something that produces good. فليقل خيرا أو ليصمت. If he doesn't know something, a word that will bring about goodness, then he should keep quiet. Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, this shows that whatever you say may be something good or bad or idle, not good, not bad. You should only speak if it's good. If it's bad, obviously, don't say it. If it's idle speech, not good, not bad, not here nor there, even then, you should keep your mouth shut. You should only speak if whatever you have to say will bring about some goodness. SubhanAllah. Imagine if we implemented this in our lives. You know, how much evil we could have avoided. A lot of the time, we have big dramas within our households, big conflicts in relationships because of a word that was out of turn. Somebody says a word that shouldn't have been said, and then it was the spark. The first word that sparked a big argument in the relationship. Okay? So the Prophet ﷺ, he says, whoever believes in Allah and the last day, من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر, let him say something good or be quiet. If whatever you're saying has no goodness, will not produce goodness in the conversation, then be quiet. Don't say it. Control your mouth, control your tongue. I have a question for you here. Why did he say من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر? Whoever believes in Allah and the last day. Okay? Even though we believe in Allah, the books, the angels, the prophets of Allah, you know, the qadar of Allah, the 6 articles of faith. Why particularly here we are mentioning من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر? Huh? Okay, that's for the last part. That's the day of accounting. Very good. The first part. Yeah. The first part, من كان يؤمن بالله. If you truly believe that Allah is your Lord, He created you, and you owe Him obedience. And for your obedience, in the last day, you will either be rewarded or punished. Do you see why these two, they go together? من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر. Whoever believes in Allah and the hereafter. A lot of people sometimes, all of us are guilty of this. Many a times during our day, we forget that we are slaves to Allah. We forget that we owe Allah obedience. We feel that we are at liberty to do what we please. Right? And the truth of the matter that we are all slaves to Allah, and Allah is our master. So if you truly believe that Allah is your master, there will be instructions coming in the remainder of the hadith. If you truly believe in the last day, that if you follow the instructions, you will be rewarded, and if you don't follow the instructions, you will be punished, then whatever comes in the remainder of the hadith is of great interest to you. So what did he say? من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا. Let him say something good, or let him be quiet. Does that make sense? طيب. Then he says وفي لفظ لمسلم. This is Imam Ibn Qayyim رحمه الله تعالى continues. He says in one narration of Imam Muslim رحمه الله, the hadith goes like this. لفظ, another wordings. What does that tell us? What does that mean when you say one hadith is narrated according to one wording, one lafz, and it was narrated in a different wording? So two different narrators. One of them narrated by meaning. They had different set of words, and another narrator narrated it with the same meaning but different set of words. So the ulama, for them to capture the whole meaning, they will bring all the narrations together to develop good understanding of the hadith. Right? So he says, وَفِي لَفْظٍ لِمُسْلِمٍ. In one other narration in Sahih Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ said, the hadith goes like this: مَنْ كَانَ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. Whoever believes in Allah and the last day. فَإِذَا شَهِدَ أَمْرًا. If you witness a situation, somebody doing something, two people doing something, a conflict between two individuals, some drama unfolding before your eyes. من شهد أمرا. Whoever find themselves in a situation where they have witnessed something. من شهد أمرا فليتكلم بخير. Let him say something conducive to goodness, conducive to positivity. طيب. فليتكلم بخير أو ليسكت. Otherwise, let him be quiet. So you will come across situations, right? And your contribution to that situation can either inflame things or diffuse things. So what will you say? So the Prophet ﷺ says, if you have something that will diffuse the situation, something that will bring goodness about, then say it. Otherwise, stay out of it. Don't say that will add anything that will add more to the situation. And you find that this hadith, Ibn Qayyim did not bring it on its entirety. He brought the part of it that is relevant. But I think since this is a sisters class, I think the remainder of it is actually relevant for us to study and learn a lot from it. In the remainder of the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says, I'll bring it from the beginning. من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر. Whoever believes in Allah and the last day. فإذا شهد أمرا. When he comes across a situation, comes across something that needs commenting, correction, intervention, and he feels the need to say something. فليتكلم خيرا أو ليصمت. Let him say something good, or let him be quiet. Then he says what? He says, واستوصوا بالنساء خيرا. And be mindful of women and be good to them. Why is that? How is this relevant? استوصوا بالنساء خيرا. Women. women are emotional, and you are likely, and now he's addressing men, you are likely to find something to comment about when you look at the situation of women. Right? There is something to comment about. There is always something that you feel like you would like to say as a man. Right? So he says, وَاسْتَوْصُوا بِالنِّسَاءِ خَيْرًا. So the general rule, if you come across a situation that needs for you to comment or criticize or something like this, he says you either say something that is good, conducive of goodness, that will improve the situation, or keep your mouth shut. In particular, when you come across women. وَاسْتَوْصُوا بِالنِّسَاءِ خَيْرًا, meaning, and encourage one another, you men, encourage one another to take it easy upon women. Why is that? He says in the remainder of the hadith, فَإِنَّ الْمَرْأَةَ خُلِقَتْ مِنْ ضِلَعٍ. For you should remember that a woman is created from a rib. You know the rib? The bone of the chest, ribs. طيب. المرأة, Hawa alayhi salam, our mother, was created from the rib of Adam alayhi salam. Right? He was sleeping in Jannah one time, and then he woke up and he found that Hawa alayhi salam was created from his rib. So Adam alayhi salam was created from dust, from mud, from clay, and then the soul was blown on him. But Hawa alayhi salam was created from what? From Adam's rib. Right? And there is a lot of wisdom for why that is the case. Right? The Prophet, he says, remember this fact that Hawa alayhi salam, women, are created from a rib. And he says, وَإِنَّ أَعْوَجَ شَيْءٍ فِي الضِّلَعِ أَعْلَاهُ. So the rib by its nature is curved. So in the very nature of women, there is this curvature. There is curvature in her attitude, in her way of handling situations. Right? And he says, وَإِنَّ أَعْوَجَ شَيْءٍ فِي الضِّلَعِ. The most curved part in the rib is what? The top part of it. The most curved part of the bone of the rib is what? The top part. What can you make of this? What does that mean? So basically her nature, the nature of women being sensitive, being emotional, being created to be responsive to emotions, the emotions of everybody within the household. She is the one that provides care, So therefore she has to be responsive to how does the child feel? How does the daughter feel? How does the son feel? How does the husband feel? She's sensitive to emotions. But that sensitivity makes her also sensitive to her own emotions. She's also sensitive to her own emotion. That sensitivity makes her have this curvature in her personality. She is not the most logical at all times. Right? She's not the most logical at all times. And because of that, the Prophet, he says, you may come across a lot of situations that when you look at it from a pure logical point of view, they don't make sense. Right? So he says to men, be very careful with women, because that's part of their nature. So when you correct a man, right, you take a certain approach because he is a man. Right? But when you correct a woman, you definitely need to have a different approach to the approach you have to man, to a man, right? Why? Because women is different in their nature, in the way they created from man. When he said that the most curved part of the bone is the top part, some ulama, they say this is to emphasize the curvature. This is to emphasize the crookedness in the emotional aspect of the woman. Right? So he says, consider consider her curvature as the most curved part of her. That's why he said, consider the most part of her. Other ulama, they say, this hadith, since he speaks about speaking, he is saying that with women, right, what is the top part of her? The uppermost part of a woman is her head and where the tongue is. So some ulama, they say this part where he says the most curved part of the rib is what? Is the top part, just emphasis. Other ulama, they say, no, this hadith is speaking about the tongue. The tongue. He says, فَلْيَقُلْ خَيْرًا أَوْ لِيَصْمُتْ. Let him say something good or be quiet. But when it comes to women, maybe they will not be able to succeed in this task as they should. And therefore, take it easy with women. Don't feel the need to correct them with every mistake they do. Take a longer sighted approach with them. Allow them more time than you would give to a man to understand things, to come around, to fathom the ideas that you're trying to get them to understand. A lot of the times, women, sometimes we fail in this. You know, we don't understand that women are different in nature to us. And therefore, and this is something for you to learn as well, you know, men sometimes they are used to a certain way of thinking. So they expect you also to think in the same way. Okay? So what we say to men, we say to men, take it easy on women. But also we say to women, be mindful that a man is a man. Only few men are mindful of this Islamic knowledge. And therefore, they would expect from you to think like how a man thinks. Right? So you should encourage them to take it easy upon you and to remind them, look, I am a woman. I am trying my best. I'm not saying that I will remain like this, I will do this, but I remind you that I am a woman and I am created emotional. Right? Yes.
So this curved nature of women, will it be taken into account by Allah? Will it be taken into consideration according to how we judge?
I will come to that in a minute, inshallah. طيب, so the Prophet ﷺ, he says, وَإِنَّ أَعْوَجَ شَيْءٍ فِي الضِّلَعِ أَعْلَاهُ. The most curved part is the top part of it. So a group of ulama, they say he's referring to the head where the tongue is. Meaning, as men, طيب, you will see in this department of controlling the tongue, women are a little bit loose. A little bit loose. طيب, so what you do, just bear that in mind. Her crookedness, the crookedness in her personality will manifest most in what? In her words, in what she says. طيب? So the Prophet ﷺ, he says, bear that in mind. And then he says, إِن ذَهَبْتَ تُقِيمَهُ كَسَرْتَهُ. This rib, this curved rib, if you insist to make it straight, طيب, and you try to curve it in the opposite direction, what will happen? You will break it. It will snap. طيب, and you will break it. وَإِن تَرَكْتَهُ لَمْ يَزَلْ أَعْوَجْ. And if you leave it, it will remain curved. So what the hadith is saying here, he's saying that obviously because of that nature, as men, you are not supposed to expect women to be quick in their understanding of things, understand their nature. But at the same time, you are responsible for their correction. You are responsible for their correction, their discipline, their upbringing, their education, that you should just have a long-sightedness. You know, allow them more time. You cannot leave them to their curvature, to their crookedness of their personality. No, you cannot leave them to that. They have to be educated. They have to be helped. They have to be spoken to. They have to be in kindness with good words. But at the same time, there is no room for a man to say that he will neglect his women folks in that department. You have to advise. You have to educate. You have to discipline. You know, just allow them more time and bear in mind that they are women. So he says, in ذهبت تقيمه كسرته. If you insist on straightening up this curved bone, you will break it. In another hadith, it says, and the breaking of that bond is what? Is divorce. You will divorce her eventually. If you insist on seeing her straight like how some men are, right? Then this will never be achieved. This will never be achieved. So you will keep on nagging. You will keep having problems with her until one day you'll decide that this woman is not going to change. You will leave her for that. Right? So the Prophet ﷺ is saying what? Don't expect her to go against her very nature. That nature is instilled in her for a reason, for her to fulfill her duty, being emotional, just help her curb that emotion. Help her keep that emotion under control. Okay? And this is the answer to your question, my sister. So what is it? Is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala going to account you for being emotional when He is the one who created you emotional? Right? The answer is no. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will account you for whether or not you worked on curbing your emotions. The same thing with men. Men as well, they have emotions, they have desires, they have certain tendencies that are different to women. Right? We can't say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because He instilled that in men, then men are free to do whatever they want. La. The same thing with women. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made you emotional only for you to fulfill a duty, right? Not for you to transgress. If you don't do tazkiyah such that you are able to control that emotion, then the other hadith will be applicable. You know the other hadith? Look at subhanAllah, the wisdom of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now that he's speaking to men, what did he tell them? Look after women, give them more time, and don't try to make them like a man, because they will never become like a man. So expect from them what you would expect from a woman. But when he spoke to women, what did he tell them? Oh, you women are emotional, so you have a green light, you can do whatever you want. No, he told them, oh, women folks, I've seen you to be the majority of the people of the fire of hell. I've seen you to be the majority of the people of the fire of hell. يا معشر النساء تصدقنا, give charity. فإني وجدتكن أكثر أهل النار. I found you to be the majority of the people of the fire of hell. They said, Ya Rasulullah, why are we the majority of the people of the fire of hell? He says, لأن كنا تكثرن اللعنة وتكفرن العشير. Because you deny your husband his favors, he will look after you for an entire year. And then one day he will miss out on something. He will say, oh, you never look after me. You never do this to me. Right? Is this logical or emotional? Because she knows. She knows that this man was looking after her for the entire year. But in that moment, she forgot. Out of her emotion, what did she tell him? You never do this for me. You never look after me. You never think about me. You never do this for me. Right? She is acting emotionally. Right? And she said, وَيُكْثِرْنَ اللَّعْنَ. You curse and cuss a lot. You know, when you become emotional, you cuss and curse a lot. So this is part of them being what? Emotional. Are they accounted for it or not?
Yes.
Yeah, see, you are accounted for it. So a lot of sisters, what do they say? They say, oh, but we are women. We are emotional. No, this is not for you to say. This is for a shaykh, an imam, a teacher, to say that to a man. When you speak to a man, you tell them, okay, she's a woman, look after her, be careful with her. But it's not for you to use that as an excuse. You cannot bring that to use it in your benefit. So the Prophet ﷺ, when he spoke to men, he said, look after women. But when he spoke to women themselves, what did he tell them? Careful, this emotion will make you the majority of the fire of hell. The majority of the people of the fire of hell. Okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you this emotion. Your tazkiyah mission is to make sure that you keep them under control. You keep them under control. Be righteous in what you say. Be righteous in what you do. Right? There will be slip-ups, you know, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala obviously will take your nature into account when judging you, when accounting you. Right? Like how He asks us men to look after you and bear that in mind. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself, when He accounts you, He will consider the fact that you are a woman. Right? But as long as you are showing the right attitude, you are working on things. You are working on things. If you are working on things, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cut you some slack. Okay? So this is the full hadith. The full hadith says what? Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir. Whoever believes in Allah and the last day. فَإِذَا شَهِدَ أَمْرًا. When you see a scenario, a situation, فَلْيَتَكَلَّمْ بِخَيْرٍ أَوْ لِيَسْكُتْ. Let him say something that is conducive of goodness. If you are going to lose it and become emotional and worsen things, then you should not do that. You should be quiet. And then he says, وَاسْتَوْصُوا بِالنِّسَاءِ خَيْرًا. Okay? Because of two reasons. Look after women, because chances are you will find women in situations where you might feel that the need to criticize them. Or you might find situations where women, they fail in this mission, the mission of controlling their tongue. Right? He says, be careful and look after them because they are created from a rib. And the most curved rib, the most curved part of the rib is the top part of it, referring to the tongue. In dhahabta tuqimahu kasartahu. If you insist on fixing it and making it straight, you will break it, and that breaking is what? Divorce. Right? وإن تركته لم يزل معوجا. If you abandon it without any correction, it will remain curved, which means you should not abandon it. You should do correction as best as you can, right? Without damaging, without expecting too much, or without expecting from a woman what you would expect from a man. That is the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. Ibnul Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, moving to the following hadith, he says, وذكر الترمذي بإسناد صحيح عنه صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال من حسن إسلام المرء تركه ما لا يعنيه. It is of one's, the Prophet said, it is of one's perfection of their righteousness. It is of one's perfection of your righteousness, of your submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of your religiosity, that you will not be concerned with anything that is none of your business. Something that is not of your concerns, you stay out of it. You try to be not involved with something that is not your business. Does that make sense? Okay. Whether by saying something or by doing something, if it's not a concern for you, leave yourself out of situations. You don't have to be involved in something that doesn't concern you. Also, another hadith, the hadith of Sufyan ibn Abdullah al-Thaqafi, Imam Ibn Qayyim bring this on. He says, قال Sufyan said, قال قلت يا رسول الله. I said, يا رسول الله, قل لي في الإسلام قولا لا أسأل عنه أحدا بعدك. O Prophet of Allah, teach me something about Islam that is so powerful, so comprehensive, and so aggregate, something that is jami', something that is comprehensive, that if I learn it, I will be able to perfect my Islam. He says, teach me about Islam, something that is so comprehensive, that I can put in my head and focus on. And look at the Sahaba, radwanullahi alayhim. The Sahaba of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they truly believed in Islam. They truly believed in Islam. They believed that this Islam is going to bring me every form of goodness that I can ever think about. And because of that, I need to improve my Islam. I need to improve my actions, my submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why they kept on asking Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam about this, asking, we studied the hadith of Mu'adh radiallahu anhu, Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiallahu anhu, not too long ago. And now we have this hadith of Sufyan ibn Abdullah. And if there's one thing that we have to learn from this, is you have to show keenness. If you truly believe that Islam is the proper religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that if you act upon in the most righteous of ways, a lot of goodness will come to you. You need to go out of your way to learn the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look at him. He went to the Prophet and he says, Ya Rasulullah, teach me something about Islam. Something that's so powerful, so deep, that I can engross into my mind and learn to improve myself. In our lives, we find ourselves guilty of having no desire to learn Islam. We are Muslims, but that's about it. Do we have any activities in which we actually learn about Islam? The answer is, in most cases, no. How does that reconcile with you believing that Islam is the proper religion of Allah? Does that make sense? It doesn't make sense for you to say that I believe that Islam is the proper religion of Allah that brings goodness into our lives, yet you're not learning anything about it. Okay? So this Sahabi, he's not the only Sahabi. Many Sahabi, you'll find them. Every time they find the Prophet in a quiet place, they say, Ya Rasulullah, teach me something. Ya Rasulullah, how do I do this? Ya Rasulullah, what is the most important thing about Iman? Ya Rasulullah, what is Islam? Ya Rasulullah, what is this? What is that? They are very keen. So this Sahabi, he said, Ya Rasulullah, قل لي في الإسلام قولا لا أسأل عنه أحدا بعدك. Teach me something that is so comprehensive about Islam. If I learn it, I will never need to ask anyone else about Islam after you. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قل آمنت بالله ثم استقم. He says, say, O Sufyan, say, آمنت بالله. I believe in Allah. I believe in Allah. I trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I have yaqeen in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I am certain that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will only command me that which is to my benefit. قل آمنت بالله. Say that. آمنت. You say it with your tongue alone, tongue and your heart. You say it with your tongue and with your heart. آمنت بالله. I trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. طيب. And then he says, ثم استقم. Then be on an upright state. Meaning, acting upon whatever you learned from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you trust him, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do this is good for you, then be on an upright position. Become righteous. Right? قال قل آمنت بالله ثم استقم. قلت يا رسول الله. Another question. He said, يا رسول الله ما أخوف ما تخاف علي. What is the one thing that you fear for me the most? He says what? فأخذ بلسان نفسه. Rasulullah, he says, he held his own tongue. He says this. The Sahabi said, Ya Rasulullah, what is the one thing that you fear the most for me? He says, I worry about your tongue. This could be the one thing that can destroy you. And as we speak about the tongue, we have not long ago, we have covered the issue of thoughts. But it's important to emphasize here that whatever you say with your tongue, you will only say it with your tongue after you have said it in your mind. Something is said into the heart first before it is uttered with the tongue. So if you want to control what your tongue utters, you have to make sure that you control what your heart utters first. Okay? For example, an argument between the hadith of Rasulullah when he said that when a woman says to her husband, you never did anything good for me. This thing came in a moment of anger when she became emotional. But do you think this came out of the blue? She just uttered the word? No. She must have said that in the heart before. Shaitan must have prepared her for this way before. He kept on blowing this in her heart. And then when she became emotionally, the Shaitan said, say this. He whispered that idea in her head, and then she said it. Right? It could be the same situation between family members. Right? You will not say anything negative to your husband, to your wife, to your brother, to your sister, to your colleague at work, just like that. It will be something that the Shaitan will prep you for. So if you want to govern your tongue, you need to protect your heart. When the Shaitan whispers something negative to you about a person, you meet one of your colleagues at work. Let's say, for example, forget about siblings, forget about your parents, your husband, and so on and so forth. Right? Just a colleague. The minute you see this person, you'll say, oh, I can't stand this person. You see it in your heart. You see him and you say, can't stand this person. He seems like an arrogant one. It's your responsibility then to say to yourself, why am I saying this? I have no right to say this. What do I know about this person? I just met him now. How is it that I have already made so much judgment that he's arrogant already? Right? Because unless you defend this person in your heart and cleanse your heart from that negative thought, just wait for it. It's just a moment of time where you will find yourself showing hostility against this person without any due reason, without any justice and fairness. Why is that? Because you did not purify your heart when the Shaitan was whispering something negative for you. The same thing. Think about your brother. Think about your sister. How many fights occur between brothers, sisters, husbands and wives, right? And it's all, they think that it's just a matter of word that you uttered. You need to understand that this word did not just come out of nowhere. You were prepped about this word long before, and you failed to protect your brother, your sister, your wife, your husband. You did not protect them in your heart. And that's why when you actually had that encounter with them, the word just came out of your tongue. So this idea of protecting the tongue is impossible unless you are going to work on purifying your heart. unless you are going to guard your heart and to protect people from you slandering them, slandering them in your heart before you slander them in your tongue. Is that making sense? طيب, Ibn Qayyim رحمه الله تعالى, he says, وعن أم حبيبة, narrating the wife of the Prophet أم حبيبة, عن أم حبيبة زوج النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, the wife of رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, from narrating from the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, she said, كل كلام ابن آدم عليه, everything that son of Adam is against him. Everything you say, everything that the son of Adam utters is going to be against him on the day of judgment, not for him. كل كلام ابن آدم عليه إلا, except أمر بمعروف أو إلا أمرا بمعروف أو نهيا عن منكر, except enjoining a good or forbidding the evil, or ذكر الله عز وجل, or the remembrance of Allah. The remembrance of Allah. The hadith يعني was classified as a weak hadith from a chain of narrators point of view. Imam al-Albani رحمه الله تعالى, he classed it as Hasan, a reliable, good enough hadith يعني. Where he says, the Prophet he says, everything you say is going to be against you, not for you. Everything that comes out of your tongue, except if it falls under three categories: enjoining the good, forbidding the evil, and the remembrance of Allah. Ilm. You either receive ilm or you share ilm that you have. Anything that is outside of the remembrance of Allah is going to take you away from Allah. Another hadith that is very important here and very relevant, classified as Hasan by Imam al-Albani rahimahullah ta'ala, from the narration of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu anh, also in Sunan al-Tirmidhi. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and listen to this, إذا أصبح العبد, every morning when the son of Adam wakes, فإن الأعضاء كلها تكفر اللسان. All the body parts, they beg the tongue. تكفر اللسان, one of the meanings, the ulama, they said, for تكفر اللسان means they beg him in humbleness and humility, begging him to please don't cause us to do something evil. تكفر اللسان تقول له اتق الله فينا فإنما نحن بك. They say to the tongue, all your body parts, your eyes, your nose, your hearing, all your body parts, they beg the lisan. They beg him with humility and humbleness, saying, please fear Allah on us. Because if you become righteous, we will become righteous. And if you become evil, we will become evil. Why is that? Because this tongue, subhanAllah, is a muscle. The tongue is a muscle. But it's the one muscle that it never gets tired. Have you had a tongue? Have you felt like fatigue in your tongue? Never. It's a small organ, but never gets tired. You can speak forever. And a sin, once you are used to sinning through your tongue, you're not going to commit one sin at a time. You will be committing sins in a series, in bulk. A lot of sins at one time. One sin after another, one sin after another. And all these sins that are committed by the tongue, what will they do to the heart? They will ruin the heart. They will corrupt the heart. And once the heart is corrupted, what will happen? The rest of the body will become corrupted. So all the body parts, according to this hadith, they speak to the tongue and they say, oh tongue, fear Allah on us. Do not take us to the fire of hell. فإنما نحن بك فإذا استقمت استقمنا. If you are on a straight, righteous manner, we will become on a straight, righteous manner. وإن اعوججت اعوججنا. And if you become crooked, we will also become crooked in our actions. This is hadith that is authentic. Other ulama, they said, تكفر الأعضاء تكفر اللسان. They say to him, you are the one that doesn't have any remembrance of the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't act righteously. You act as if you are a denier of Allah's blessings. تكفر اللسان. Does that make sense? all the body parts, they accuse the lisan of being kafir. Kafir in what way? Kafir as a disbelief in Allah? No. Kafir could also mean the denier of Allah's favors. And how do you deny Allah's favors? By disregarding His pleasure, by not working to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they say to the tongue, you are one who's acting as if Allah doesn't, as if you don't owe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala any favors, as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have not blessed you. So they tell him, fear Allah, act righteously so that we can become righteous. So this concept I want you to be mindful of. You are not going to become righteous in all your other actions unless your tongue is righteous. Watch your tongue. You know, you need to be, a true believer is known for their silence. A true believer is known for their silence. You don't speak too much. You know, and a lot of us are just in the habit of just speaking all the time, speaking. We become like chatterboxes. Right? And that is very detrimental for our iman, and very detrimental for our actions, and very detrimental for our righteousness. The Salaf, Imam Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala here, he says, the Salaf, knowing all this importance of the tongue, they used to account themselves so strictly about everything that they say with their tongue. He says, rahimahullah ta'ala, وَقَدْ كَانَ بَعْضُ السَّلَفِ يُحَاسِبُ أَحَدُهُمْ نَفْسَهُ فِي قَوْلِهِ يَوْمٌ حَارٌ وَيَوْمٌ بَارِدٌ. The Sahaba, the companions of Rasulullah, he says they used to account themselves for saying, it's a hot day, it's a cold day. They say, where's the need to say this? They account for themselves for that. And in our standards, we'll be thinking, what's wrong with saying it's a cold day or it's a hot day? No, they account themselves like this so they can stay as far as possible from saying anything that can be remotely sinful. Okay? This is how they account themselves. He says, rahimahullah ta'ala, speaking about Al-Junaid. Al-Junaid is one of the, they call him Shuyukh al-Sufiyya. You know, the early generations of Sufis, like Al-Junaid. They were scholars, you know, but they were focused on this idea of meditation and purification of the heart and this tazkiyah of the nafs. And they had good insightful knowledge about it. He says, rahimahullah ta'ala, when Al-Junaid passed away, they saw him in a dream. وَلَقَدْ رُؤِيَ بَعْضُ الْأَكَابِرِ مِنْ أَهْلِ الْعِلْمِ. They saw him in a dream, Al-Junaid. فَسُئِلَ عَنْ حَالِهِ. They asked him, how are you faring in the akhirah, in the hereafter? Because he's hereafter, he's crossed the line, he's crossed death. فَسُئِلَ عَنْ حَالِهِ فَقَالَ أَنَا مَوْقُوفٌ عَلَى كَلِمَةٍ قُلْتُهَا. I am here standing, right? Not allowed to enjoy the rewards of my actions because of a word that I said. What is it? قال قلت ما أحوج الناس إلى غيث. You know, he says that our people are so desperately in need for rain. You know, he says people are so desperately in need for rain. فقيل لي, I was told in the akhirah, وما يدريك, what do you know? أنا أعلم بمصلحة عبادي. I know what is best for my servant better than you. And maybe my servants need more drought in this particular time. So what is he being held back for? For saying, oh, people are in so much need for rain. وقال بعض الصحابة, Ibn al-Qayyim continues, وقال بعض الصحابة لجاريته يوما. And some of the Sahaba, he said to a servant or a little girl that he has, هاتي السفرة نعبث بها. Sufra, you know what sufra means? Bring the sufra, let's play with it. What is sufra? Sufra comes from safar. Safar, yeah. When you travel, you will put your provisioning, your food, in a bag made of cloth or something, and then when you eat, you will spread that bag or that cloth on the floor, and you eat on it. Right? So it's called sufra. Nowadays, sufra is a rug or something plastic that you put on the floor to put your food on top of it when you eat. Right? Sufra, the same. So sufra, he says, هاتي السفرة نعبث بها. Bring the sufra, let's play with it. ثم قال, then this Sahabi said, أستغفر الله ما أتكلم بكلمة إلا وأنا أختمها وأزمها. He says, I seek Allah's forgiveness. I will not speak a word except that I will control it and I will see whether it's appropriate or not. He said, this thing came out of my tongue without control. I said to her, let's bring the sufra, let's play with it. إلا هذه الكلمة, except this word, خرجت مني بغير خطام ولا زمام. This word came out of me without any control. طيب, أو كما قال رضي الله عنه. Ibn Qayyim رحمه الله تعالى, he says, أيسر حركات الجوارح حركة اللسان. The easiest movement of the physical limbs of a person is the movement of a tongue. وهي أضرها على العبد. It's the most harmful for the servant. The movement of your tongue, what you say. Now he's bringing a mas'ala here. What is it that is written in your book of deeds? What is written? Do the angels write absolutely everything? Or anything that is either a goodness, hasana, something righteous deed, or evil deed, al-hasana or sayya. So which of the two is true? Do the angels write everything? Or do they only write that which is relevant? These are two opinions. He says, وَالْأَظْهَرُ الْأَوَّلِ. The stronger opinion is that the angels will write everything. Everything you utter is written. This is to say what? When Allah on the Day of Judgment, when you meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will tell you, اقرأ كتابك, read your book. And you'll find in that book everything you uttered, whether it is righteous or evil or idle. Okay? وقال بعض السلف كل كلام ابن آدم عليه لا له إلا ما كان من الله وما والاه. Everything you say will be used against you, will harm you, except that which is for Allah and that which assists what is for Allah. إلا ما كان من الله وما والاه. طيب. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu, the great companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, كان يمسك بلسانه, used to hold his tongue, and he used to say, هذا الذي أوردني المهالك. This organ is what caused me to go to destruction. والكلام أسيرك, Ibnul Qayyim says, speech, anything you say, is a prisoner to you. And words that are imprisoned by you as long as you hold your tongue. The minute you let go of them, you will become the prisoner of your own words. You will become at the mercy of your words, meaning you will receive consequences that you cannot get rid of. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, in Surah Qaf, ما يلفظ من قول إلا لديه رقيب عتيد. You will not utter any word, except that you have two angels writing everything that comes out of you. رقيب عتيد. He concludes the section by saying, with regards to this tongue, there are two dangerous defects that we may suffer the consequences of. What are they? To speak when you shouldn't be speaking, and to go silent when you should be speaking. So even silence, complete utter silence is not the solution. You need to know when should you speak, and then you must speak on those instances in which you have to speak. And you also need to know when you should be quiet and not say anything. And a lot of people, he said, a lot of people are either speaking when they shouldn't be speaking or going silent when they should be saying something. He says, في اللسان آفتان عظيمتان إن خلص العبد من إحداهما لم يخلص من الأخرى آفة الكلام وآفة السكوت. There are two deficiencies from the tongue. If one is saved from one of them, you will be consumed by the other. What are they? The afa, the defect of silence, and the defect of speaking. You know, sometimes people don't know when to speak and when to go. He says, وَقَدْ يَكُونُ كُلٌّ مِّنْهُمَا أعظم إثما من الأخرى في وقتها. You know, sometimes silence can be more sinful than talking if you don't talk at the right time. So silence is not idle. Not speaking, as the Prophet ﷺ says, الساكت عن الحق شيطان أخرس. There will be situations, the Prophet ﷺ says, the one who is silent in saying the truth is a silent shaitan. The one who refuses to speak the truth. Right? This is a silent shaitan. So there will be situations where you can see the truth that you owe allegiance to. You give allegiance to the truth and you need to support the truth. This happens even between siblings. You have two of your siblings fighting, right? And are you going to just let them fight like this? Where if you have intervened, the one who is wronging will realize that they are wronging and the fighting will stop. So it's an obligation upon you to make sure that you come in and you say something that is conducive to khair. You let the person know that this is wrong what they are doing. And hopefully that way the situation will stop. وإن طائفتان من المؤمنين اقتتلا فأصلحوا بينهما فإن بغت إحداهما على الأخرى فقاتلوا التي تبغي حتى تفيء إلى أمر الله. If two groups of Muslims, they fight among themselves, he says, فأصلحوا بينهما, then reconcile between them, try to help them find peace and go back to being brothers. But if one of them transgresses against the other, you should stop the transgressor. It's an obligation upon you to stop the transgressor. Right? A lot of situations could have been eliminated if people said the right thing at the right time. But people choose to be quiet. So Ibn Qayyim, he says, sometimes you gain more sins from being quiet than you would from speaking. And sometimes it's the other way around. He says, الساكت عن الحق شيطان أخرس. The one who goes quiet concerning speaking the truth is a silent shaitan. He's a quiet shaitan. عاصٍ لله. He's a disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. مراء. He seeks the pleasure of people. He seeks to appease people. And that's why he doesn't speak the truth. مداهن إذا لم يخف عن نفسه. He is the person that is appeasing to people unless he fears for himself, and that's why he chose to be quiet. Sometimes there'll be situations you could die if you say anything. In that situation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take that into account. But if somebody doesn't fear for themselves, then you have to speak the truth. وَالْمُتَكَلِّمُ بِالْبَاطِلِ, the one that speaks falsehood or evil, this person is shaytanun natiq, is a speaking or is a loud shaitan. عاصٍ لله سبحانه وتعالى. So he says, وَأَكْثَرُ النَّاسِ وَأَكْثَرُ الْخَلْقِ مُنْحَرِفٌ فِي كَلَامِهِ وَسُكُوتِهِ. Most people are deviant in their speech and in their silence. They don't know when to speak and they don't know when to go quiet. وَأَهْلُ الْوَسَطِ, the people of righteousness, they know when to speak and when not to speak. They will not miss an opportunity in which they can say something righteous, pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, bringing them ajr and reward with Allah. And also they know the situations where being quiet is more rewarding than speaking. He concludes with this one commentary here, rahimahullah ta'ala. He says, إِنَّ الْعَبْدَ لَيَأْتِي يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ بِحَسَنَاتٍ أَمْثَالِ الْجِبَالِ فَيَجِدُ لِسَانَهُ قَدْ هَدَمَهَا عَلَيْهِ كُلَّهَا. He says, on the day of judgment, you will find the servant of Allah coming with mountains of righteousness. And he will find that his tongue has demolished all these mountains of righteousness. All these righteous deeds that the person did, it was destroyed by the tongue. And vice versa, he says, وَيَأْتِي بِسَيِّئَاتٍ, and a servant of Allah will come with evil deeds that are in the likes of mountains, chains of mountains. وَيَأْتِي بِسَيِّئَاتٍ أَمْثَالِ الْجِبَالِ فَيَجِدُ لِسَانَهُ قَدْ هَدَمَهَا. And he will find that his tongue has demolished all these mountains of sins. How? With the remembrance of Allah. Using your tongue. You know, you could be committing sins in other departments of your life, but if you know how to utilize your tongue can demolish all these sins. You rise with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you'll find that your remembrance of Allah, your dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, destroyed all your sins. This is all Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala included in his section here. we will conclude here. If you have questions, we can discuss them, answer them.
I've got a series of questions.
Yes.
Firstly, what about if the tongue saying the dhikr is just saying it habitually, it needs to get reward for the reading?
Yes, the question is, if you say the remembrance of Allah just habitually, out of habit, meaning you are not able to connect the tongue with the heart. You're just saying it by the tongue. Will you get reward? The ulama they said definitely you'll get reward. They said there is a good chance that your heart will connect even if in some part of the time. Say for you said 100 times subhanallah, 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 but you're busy. You're busy, but you're still moving your tongue with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There will be some instances in which you say subhanallah and you were mindful of it. There's that chance. But they said the greatest benefit is that you occupied your tongue so that the tongue will not be speaking evil. By moving your tongue, even if the heart is not connected, but at least you kept this tongue, this tool, you kept it too busy that it wasn't occupied with something evil. And they also said that it is so difficult for a tongue that was just remembering Allah to move into something sinful after you go quiet. If you've been saying subhanallah, astaghfirullah 100 times, for example, as you're walking to the station, as you're walking to school or to work, to your workplace, you will find it very difficult to move from the remembrance of Allah into something foul and something wrong. Right? So they say ideally, the best dhikr is the dhikr in which you engage the tongue and the heart together. Right? But if the best you could do, given the circumstance, is to engage the tongue, then that's even good. Do that. Yeah.
Also,
yeah.
You mentioned about the man that said important that some people need to pray for prayer. Something. That they need to pray for prayer. So they need to pray for rain, like that. Yeah. Now last maybe what slaves need is drought. What about if they're trying to admonish people, for example, and only Allah knows what is good for them. But you think this could be something of benefit for them, and He said it to them, and Allah doesn't want them to do that thing. Will you be sinful for giving admonition to people like that?
This is speaking. First of all, this is a dream. He said that this is a dream that Al-Junayd was seeing, and he was asked, "How are you faring in the Akhirah?" He said, "I am held back from enjoying the pleasures of the rewards of my righteous deeds, and what's holding me back, I am being spoken to about a statement that I said, which is what? Oh, people need rain in this drought." So he made that comment. It wasn't a righteous deed in such that he's telling people that do salat, do dua, and you get rain. No, he just made that comment. And he says that this is something that you don't know. Maybe my people, my slaves, they need drought more than they need rain. Because rain is not going to bring them close to Allah. Maybe this dire situation, maybe this hardship, maybe this calamity is going to bring them close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So who are you? Are you their God? Are you their Lord? Or am I the Rabb? So he says, I was accounted like this. Why did I say that word? Okay? Does that make sense to you, sister?
Yeah. So I was trying to say that, what about if, for example, someone is trying to maybe like make a not too good decision, for example, like she's trying to divorce her husband, for example, or any other thing. They're saying, okay, don't do this, maybe it's not good for you. What about if you are wrong by saying that? Can you be wrong for saying that?
No, I mean, you can speak to people based on what you think. Based on what you think. For example, if you feel that given what I know from the Quran and Sunnah, and from my experience in life, I say to one person, you need to think, you need to reconsider your position, because divorce is not good. Divorce is not good. And Allah said in the Quran, right, وَالصُّلْحُ خَيْرٌ. Instead of divorce, reconciliation is better. Right? So if I say to somebody that, think about it, don't go for divorce. Allah says in the Quran, فَإِن كَرِهْتُمُوهُنَّ فَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَيَجْعَلَ اللَّهُ فِيهِ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا. Perhaps you will hate them, your wives, right? And maybe you will hate something that is so good for you, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring so much goodness in you. So what I'm saying now here is consistent with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. So inshallah, that is not sinful.
Mindful of the way we put our words down.
Exactly. Yes, we just have to be careful on how we word things. We have a question online. You have a question?
Saying dhikr and not having your mouth and not connected. But yet if you say a dhikr that memorize, but you don't really mean it, is that still beneficial?
Yes, yeah, the question here, if you know a dhikr, but you don't know the meaning of, but you still say it, is that beneficial? I say the same thing. It's beneficial, it's rewarding. Like, yes, you're not going to get the maximum benefit. The main purpose of the dhikr is to use it to purify your heart, to organize your priorities, in the morning when you say your dhikr, for example, Allahumma inni as'aluka ilman nafi'a wa rizqan tayyiba wa amalan mutaqabbala. In saying this dua, what does it say? You are going to start your day seeking what? Ilman nafi'a. You have to ask for ilm nafi'a. You have to be seeking ilm. Right? Because you started your day saying, oh Allah, I ask of you to give me beneficial knowledge. Right? اللهم إني أعوذ بك من شر نفسي ومن شر الشيطان وشركه. You say in your dua, oh Allah, guard me against the evil of my nafs and the evil of shaitan. That's a dua. But at the same time, what does it do to your mind? It sets your mind in this mindset whereby you are watching your nafs and you are watching your shaitan. So dhikr, when you understand the meaning of it, it serves you very well in setting your mindset. Right? That's when you get the full benefit. Allah, it becomes a supplication. Allah assists you in whatever you're seeking. But at the same time, it makes you order your priorities, understand what's important for you from what's not important, and so on and so forth. But still, if you say it without knowing the meaning, you'll get the reward. But you should aim to understand the meanings. Yeah. If you have to prioritize knowing the meaning of the dhikr and the meaning of the Quran, which one should you start with? I would say both of them, they are the one and same thing. If you understand the dhikr, for example, if you understand the meaning of subhanallah, what does subhanallah mean? Right? You'll find the word subhanallah appeared in the Quran so many times. Right? If you want to understand what the word shaitan means, right? You want to understand the meaning of it, you'll find in the Quran it's the same thing. Even concepts, when you seek Allah's help against the evil of your nafs, you'll find that this concept is spoken about also in the Quran. So there's no contradiction really, as long as this is the Quran and this is hadith. This is dua from the hadith of Rasulullah. They come from the same source. They're not different things, right? So you can study the Quran part of the time, the meaning of the Quran. You can study also the meaning of the dua that you are saying, right? Especially the dua that you say every day. This is something you should be understanding. But don't feel that there's a contradiction. It has to be either this or that. Divide your time and learn this and learn that. Okay. There's a question online. It says, I'm trying to recover from a cycle of evil addictions. If one has previously not been able to exercise self-control and wholeheartedly wants to change, what would be advice? Is surrounded a lot by sinful speech, day-to-day life. How would one react to this? The first question, he says, I'm trying to recover from a cycle of evil addiction. Evil addiction. Somebody is going over something bad again and again, right? And they want to recover from that. They want to break that cycle. And they're saying, if one has previously not been able to exercise self-control and wholeheartedly wants to change, what should they do? Right? That's a very good question. If you have an addiction to something bad, something that you should not be saying, you should not be doing, right? But it became in the level of addiction. You became so used to it. Right? How do I recover from this one? Okay? The best thing that you should start with is the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Addiction to anything, it means you become attached to it. You love it. You enjoy it. Okay? And the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the extinguisher that extinguishes the flames of any desire in the heart. Your soul, if you remind yourself that this is a pleasure, enjoy it. Right? But for the price of this, you will be paying eternal life in the fire of hell. Right? You will not be able to see that pleasure the way you saw it before you remembered the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibnul Qayyim says, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, this is like somebody who presents to you, let's say, honey. and then injects the honey with poison inside of it. Right? When you saw the honey first time, you desired it, you wanted to have it, huh? But when you saw the person injecting poison inside the honey, even though the poison will not appear, all you could see is still honey, right? But your knowledge that there is poison injected in it make you not desire the honey anymore. He says, likewise, you could see something pleasurable, something that is desirable for you, but if you know what's inside it, you could break loose of the attachment you have from it. Okay? So the fear of Allah, build on the fear of Allah, build on the fear of the hereafter. Okay? And that, inshallah, should be the first step into breaking from that attachment. Other thing is like the constant remembrance of Allah, occupying of one time, staying away from the circumstances that lead to the sin. You know, usually when people sin, there are circumstances. Whenever these circumstances are true, that sin will naturally happen. So you need to avoid the circumstances. Sometimes friends, you know, the reason why we do certain things that are haram could be friends, you know. So therefore, avoiding the friends and the people who can be the reason why one does a sin is also something that you have to do. Who are the people who encourage you to do this, and then avoid it. And don't see something that is destroying your deen and be quiet about it out of modesty. You know, Shaitan could tell you, oh, I am ashamed of myself, I am shy, you know, and therefore I can't ask anyone about this. You know, no, don't allow something, form of addiction, to ruin your dunya and to ruin your akhirah, and you sit there and say, oh, I'm just too modest, too shy to speak about it. So out of shyness, you are going to allow this to destroy your dunya and akhirah? No, you need to reach out for the people of knowledge. You know, when people don't know your specifics, they won't be able to give you an advice that is tailor-made for you. So reach out for scholars. You know, you don't have to reveal your identity. You could just email a scholar. You could just text a scholar. You know, you could speak to a scholar on the phone. You know, without saying that this is a problem that is relevant to you personally, but you can say a friend of mine has this and that. But whatever you do, don't see one bad habit destroying your life and go quiet about it. Be responsible. Your problems, only you will be able to solve them. No one is going to leave their work and come to solve your problems. You know, everybody, they have their own loads, their own problems. They are busy with that. So you owe it to yourself to solve your own problems. طيب. We'll stop here بإذن ta'ala. Jazakumullah khair. May Allah reward you. And we'll continue next week on the last of the 4 gateways of sins, and that is the steps, actions, the steps that one takes towards the sins. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك